And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey, today we're talking about Quarrior Rise of the Demons, which is not quite so dark as it tries to sound. I mean, the box makes it look. This is the first expansion for Quarriors. There's several others. I have to say already that I'm much more excited about the next expansion than this one. This one I was pretty pumped about because I heard that it allowed you some more interaction with your opponents. It does, but not necessarily in the way that you might think. It comes with some more dice and some more cards, much like you might expect for Quarriors. Let's take a look at the expansion and I'll tell you what I think of it. The expansion adds several new cards and these dice to the game. So let's talk about them in order. First we have the new creature, which is the Demonic Overlord. Now if you remember from the original game, there's a really powerful creature known as the dragons, and everyone talks about the dragons and how they're the most powerful creatures in the game. I mean, even the wizards kind of pale besides the dragons. Well, now we have some people here who are just immensely powerful as the dragons. So if you hated the dragons, you are going to hate these guys. If you like the dragons, you'll like the fact that these guys are in the game. They're very powerful. One of them can make other people actually lose glory, and another one can destroy every creature on the board. So they're pretty neat, and I have to say I like the silhouette on them. That's a funny silhouette. Well, I don't know why I think it's funny. So anyway, there's 4 of those. They're all high point cost, 8899, but that's a good addition to the game. Another powerful creature. Then we have the most important part of this set, and that's the Corrupted Quiddity. Now this is added. This is another base card, so you'll put it alongside the other 3 base cards out on the table in every game. Although honestly, you need to put cards that it works with because this is not something that you can buy. Quiddity dice is something that you are not going to want. As you can see, that there's several zeros on the sides of these, and you don't want zeros. And then there's this little 3 asterisk burst symbol, and whenever that's rolled, you get another one of these corruption dice. So the more of these that you have in your hand, the more chance you're going to get more and more and more and more, and you don't want these. So you'll try to, I would likely guess, cull these, but at the same time that's going to be work to get them out of your deck, especially if we use some of the new things that are in the deck. There's a new spell, corruption spell basically. This one here destroys all creatures in play, but then you take one of the Corrupted Quiddity dice that I showed you earlier. This one here, if one of your creatures destroyed, you can give one of your dice from your use pile to the person who destroyed your creature, and then you can add this and use it again. This one here, you get 1 glory for each Corrupted Quiddity die in all opponents' use piles. So the more corruption dice that opponents have, the more powerful this spell is. And this one here gives everyone +1 attack for the rest of the turn, and you're going to get +1 Quiddity for each creature you destroy. So these are nasty spells, but they're at the same time, they're kind of tentative as to when you can use them, and so that's why they're so cheap, because you don't use them all the time. But this Corruption Quiddity comes into play because for every creature that was currently in the game, there is now a corrupted form of these creatures. Many of them are simply there to give out corruption dice. You can see the dragon, when he destroys someone, gives a corruption die. Here, when he scores, he gives a corruption die. And so many of them give corruption dice to the opponent. At the same time, others of them have effects based on corruption dice that are in the game. For example, here, the Corrupted Ghostly Spirit takes no damage if your opponent has rolled a Quiddity die. Here, if you gain a Corrupted Quiddity die while he's in your ready area, you gain a glory. This guy, the frog or ooze or whatever it is the power is equal to the number of Quiddity die that have not yet been taken, that are still in the wild. And then there's this guy here who has nothing to do with the corruption dice. If your opponent readies a spell die, he's destroyed, but he's cheap and powerful. And so each of these adds a little bit of flavor to the game, but they all kind of, not all of them, but most of them revolve around these corruption dice to some degree. So really, that is what is in the expansion. There is a new monster who, even if you don't like the corruption dice, you know, he doesn't really have a lot to do with them, but the new spell and then all these corrupted versions of the monsters, they have quite a bit to do with the dice. Now, the game recommends that you can add 1 to 3 of these cards for a light side of corruption, or 4 to 5 if you want a heavier side. To me, if you're going to play with the corruption dice, you need at least 3 of these, or the spells, what have you. Otherwise, there's not enough use in them to be part of the game. Just one card that has to do with corruption dice will kind of throw your game off. So instead of playing completely random, like I normally do, if we draw a corruption, corrupted, let's say the corrupted devotee of the Holy Quarry comes out, well then we will draw a few more corrupted cards and throw them in to make these corrupted quiddity dice worth their while. So they add some to the game. It's certainly kind of a way to stick it to other players. The dragon itself, or not the dragon, I'm sorry, the demon, like I said, some people are going to like it because it's powerful, other people are not. I thought it was kind of neat because they're like atomic bombs that you can set off. One of them is removed from the game, but it's, destroys everything on the board at the same time, which is a neat idea. So I like this expansion, but I'm not going to say that I love it, because it adds a little, which is fun, and don't get me wrong, I like, I already have a ton of dice in my case over here, and adding some more dice is not a bad thing, but nothing that really blew me away. This is an expansion that I really could take or leave. Of course, I want it because it adds more dice, but it's nothing fantastic.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.